Good evening. My name is Addison Field. I'm the Chief Curator of the Alaska State Museums. It's my pleasure to welcome you here tonight to Hashukahit, the Alaska State Library, Archives, and Museum, for the opening of the State Museum's 2025 summer exhibit, In a Time of Change. In a Time of Change, Boreal Forest Stories is a collaborative exhibition with 44 artists, writers, educators, and scientists. For more than a year and a half, this cohort shared knowledge and perspective on the boreal forest and then created the work you see in the exhibit gallery across the atrium. We are fortunate to have 3 members of the ITOC exhibit team here with us tonight. Let me start by welcoming Mary Beth Leigh. She is director of the ITOC program, which she co-founded in 2007. A professor at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, she teaches and conducts research in environmental microbiology and coordinates integration of the arts, humanities, and sciences. Prior to joining UAF in 2006, she earned her BFA in modern dance, MS in botany, and PhD in microbiology at the University of Oklahoma, and conducted postdoctoral research at Michigan State University. As a dancer and a cellist, she's performed in stylistically diverse ensembles over the years, often choreographing or composing pieces with a splash of science. Our second speaker tonight is visual artist and poet Susan Campbell, who arrived in Alaska in 1989 and found home. After 3 decades teaching elementary school, she turned her energy toward writing poetry and creating artist books. She's an avid outdoor adventurer. Her work reflects her connection to the natural world and is inspired by her exploration of the far north. The Alaska State Museum and the University of Alaska Rasmussen Library house her work. Her poems have appeared in various journals and especially commissioned chamber music score. Our third speaker this evening is Jennifer Moss, a virtual artist who uses contemporary elements to interpret the natural environment. Inspired by monochromatic winters, summer days brimming with light, and extreme weather events, Moss uses a range of mediums to explore figurative and abstract imagery and elusive connections within ecosystems. Moss studied at the Pacific Northwest College of Art and is an instructional designer and adjunct faculty member at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Please join me in welcoming our 3 speakers.
Thank you so much, Addison, for that wonderful introduction. And it's such a joy and an honor to be here this evening to celebrate the opening of Boreal Forest Stories in this beautiful museum. And I want to thank so much the Alaska State Museum and Jackie and Aaron and Adriana and the whole staff for pulling together this exhibit. The installation is just exquisite and honestly brought tears to my eyes when I came in to see it for the first time today. It's just such a wonderful elevation of our work. So thank you so much for having us. And we want to give a group presentation this evening in which we'll talk a little bit about the In a Time of Change program and the origins of this project. And also you'll hear directly from 2 of the participants, 2 of the artists, to get an in-depth look into some of their work. And I'd like to start just by talking a little bit about what the ITOC program is. That's short for In a Time of Change. This is an incubator for advancing environmentally focused art science integration. Of course, it's a program where we bring artists, professional artists from all over the state of Alaska together to collaborate with scientists around a shared focus on place. And then, of course, share their work with you through exhibitions and other types of presentations. And this was a program that I co-founded in 2007 in Fairbanks together with ecological scientists and Fairbanks artists and writers who all had an interest in working in this kind of community. And since that time, we've had 7 major projects on different themes, including wildfire, climate change, predator control, microbes, and now the boreal forest. And we have several more in preparation that I hope that we'll get to share with you soon. And you've already met us in depth thanks to Addison's introduction, but we're really the tip of the iceberg of this entire team that put together this project. There were over 50 participants, individual artists, writers, educators, and also organizations like the Folk School and North Star Ballet and others who all extended the reach of this broad collaborative project. It's our most ambitious of all of the art science projects that ITOC has undertaken in its 18 years. So now I want to encourage you to journey into the Boreal Forest, take a trip to the far northwest of here into interior Alaska, and see the small stick-like black spruce trees, the rivers, the braided rivers like this, the fens, the wetlands, this patchwork of beautiful landscape that we call the Boreal Forest. It's also known as the taiga. You may have heard that term, and it forms a ring around the northern pole. So if you were to look down at a globe from the top, you could see that it covers vast expanses of Alaska. So about 2/3 of Alaska is covered with boreal forest. Of course, here we're in the coastal rainforest, but it goes across Canada, northern Europe, and Russia as well. And it actually composes 1/3 of Earth's total forest area, and a huge amount of the carbon that's stored in ecosystems and soils resides in and under the boreal forest. And it's dominated by conifers like spruce and deciduous like birch and aspen, and interspersed as a mosaic with shrubs and bogs and fens and tundra. It's really a wonderful landscape. And we have a research program based at the University of Alaska Fairbanks that intensively studies the boreal forest. It's called Bonanza Creek Long-Term Ecological Research Program. This is the program from which this art science program emerged. And the Bonanza Creek LTER is based at UAF, but we study sites all throughout the interior of Alaska and seek to understand the ecology of the boreal forest and also how it's changing in response to climate change. We study naturally occurring disturbances like fire and permafrost thaw and flooding and the recovery of vegetation and ecosystems after that, and also how those things are being impacted by a warming climate. And there's a long-term commitment also to connection of this science to society. This has been funded for many, many decades by the National Science Foundation since the 1980s, when they had the vision and realization that what we really need is long-term focused research on place rather than 3-year grant cycles to understand these major patterns. And that commitment to the long-term ecological research program known as LTER also again has a built-in commitment to connect science with society's needs. And interestingly, there are 27 of these sites all across the country in different ecosystems, and across all of them, even though it was not part of their mission, arts and humanities programs have organically sprung up. And ours is one example of that. They all take different shapes and forms and emphasize different arts and operate differently. But ours has grown to become one of the biggest and most active, and we're really honored to be part of this network of arts and humanities activities that are place-based and environmentally focused, and really appreciate the support of National Science Foundation for this work. In terms of our process in the ITOC program, we competitively select and sometimes invite artists who are interested in working in this way, collaboratively with scientists and other artists focused on place. And then we actively facilitate 1 or 2, sometimes more years of programming to build relationships and foster knowledge and perspective exchange between artists and scientists. They produce original work based on their experiences, and then we help to present and produce performances, readings, exhibits, and educational activities. And then some of those exhibitions travel, like the one that you're enjoying here. And then there's also an important research component to this project that I'll share a little bit about towards the end of the talk, where we try to understand what are the best practices for facilitating this kind of collaboration and knowledge exchange, and what are the impacts of art science exhibitions and experiences on audiences? And I'll share some of those data with you a little bit later. This project, as I mentioned, Boreal Forest Stories, was our largest and most ambitious. We had over 50 Alaska artists, writers, educators, and organizations, not to mention the scientists that were involved. And our theme was science-informed narratives about the boreal forest. So we challenged all of the participants, whether they were writers or painters, to incorporate storytelling, recognizing that story is a really powerful way to connect with people and with place. Our process, because this began in December of 2020, involved a lot of virtual meetings at first. It was still COVID time. It went on for almost 2 years of engagement. We got to transition into in-person field trips and activities together, and then premiered this in September 2022 as a large constellation of activities that included the exhibition, but also literary readings, live performances, workshops, and also kids' activities, which I'll share some of you with in a minute. And the traveling exhibition then has been on the road on and off for about 2 years. We've traveled all over Alaska to Homer, Cordova, Valdez, and here in Juneau. And we have a book forthcoming with the University of Alaska Press. This is our list of visual artists. I've lost count of how many there are. I think about 24. And I just wanted to point out here just the wide range of artistic mediums, which I'm sure if you've been through the gallery, you've already seen. Everything from collage to textile art, art quilts, beadwork, book arts, painting, and delightful ceramics, and so much more than I can even mention here. So it's just such an honor to get to work with artists of this caliber. And we also had many performing artists, including the ballet company, the environmental troubadour, Susan Grace, and Sean Dalgray, a percussionist and composer who collaborated with Maite Agapian, phenomenal puppet artist. And you'll see this puppet here in the gallery. They actually will be visiting Juneau October 3rd to do their live performance of their puppet piece together with poet Daryl Farmer. So please come back for that event on October 3rd. It's not to be missed. And we had many writers involved as well, all listed here. We're also going to feature Corinna Cook. She'll be doing a reading here. She's now located in Juneau. And their work will also appear more in the book. And you can see some of Debbie Modero's poetry in the gallery in collaboration with Clara Maish. Educators worked together also to help connect this work to youth and the broader community, including by creating this incredible discovery guide, which is a fun activity book for youth, but I have found that adults love it just as much, so don't be shy about taking one for yourself. And you can go around the exhibition and learn about the art and the science and their connection, all focused on the Boreal Forest. We also had a puppet and mask making parade that puppet artist Maite Agapian coordinated for youth. The One Tree program had a series of wonderful activities, and we've also hosted many school visits too. And now I'd like to turn the podium over to Susan Campbell, who's going to share her work with you as a book artist and poet in this program.
Thanks, Mary Beth. So I began my time with In a Time of Change in 2015 as an artist and a writer for the Microbial Worlds Project. So this was the first piece I made for In a Time of Change. And I can look back 10 years in my involvement over 3 different projects with this program, and I can see that ITOC has really shaped the work I create artistically and the poetry that I write. So this artist book for Microbial Worlds is entitled Evidence. I wrote 9 poems that accompany it, and every window in this artist book shows some sort of microbial activity. During the year and a half that we worked together, it was really exciting to go out with scientists on field trips with fellow artists and writers and learn about the science, and then come back and work and try to figure out how to aesthetically create something that expressed what I was learning, and also then in the poems I was writing to express that in a poetic way. So it was a wonder and a challenge for me to do that. Delight and astonishment in the natural world has been a big part of my life, resonant in my life, and being able to be part of ITOC has really supported that in me, and I have been really drawn to this and Mary Beth's vision, and along with the inspiration with my colleagues in the program. So it's been a really great thing to be part of. I've lived in Fairbanks for 36 years, teaching elementary school for a huge part of that time, and these are pictures taken close to where I live, and I spend time on the trails there. So this is my home ground, the Boreal Forest. So when the project Boreal Forest Stories was initiated, I was so excited to be part of something with fellow artists and writers, and then to delve deeper into a place that was really important to me. My sense of place, my relationship to this place, my relationship to other people in this beloved place while I learned about the ecology. So when I think about, why I wanted to be involved in this and why I was so excited to be, I think these pictures are evocative to me of that sense of home. During this project, I can tell you, I often thought about that quote. I bet you've all heard it. Back in 1968, forestry engineer from Senegalese forestry engineer said at a gathering of conservationists, "In the end, we will conserve only what we love, and we will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught." So you can see, just listening to Mary Beth, and then when you view the gallery, that what a powerful thing this is to be part of a project where you can learn something and really feel like you're trying to bring your understanding to other people that are looking at the art and trying to see the world incorporated there. My understanding of the ecology of the boreal forest really grew as I worked on this piece, and this is my piece in the show. It's called Boreal Colloquy, and it's because it was my conversation with the forest. I'm drawn to trees shaped by ice, fire, permafrost, human activity, climate. The trees of the taiga are continually weaving a story of life and death and regeneration. So I decided to look at the 6 trees and the 2 shrubs that inhabit the boreal forest. So this is an artist's book. It's called a flitch book. Each of these wooden panels is cut from a specific tree: birch, white spruce, willow, which is considered a shrub in interior Alaska, alder, black spruce, tamarack, cottonwood, and aspen. So everything tied or connected to each flitch came from a tree, and some of them, and I'll go into detail in the next slide, show you some other objects that that are also connected into the life and the ecology of that tree. But I wanted to tell the story of these 8 trees and shrubs, and this is the way I ended up doing that. So in this detailed photo, you can see a little bit of a close-up of the flitches. So in the first one, birch, I arranged 16 different kinds of birch bark along with seeds and some other parts of the birch tree. Okay. In the next one, the white spruce, all parts of the white spruce and the seeds and the cones and the porcupine quills, because porcupines spend a lot of time in white spruce. The willows page is home for some moose bone and a ptarmigan feather and a little bit of snowshoe hare fur. Salmon bones are tied to the alder flitch because they grow so close to the rivers in the interior. Black spruce are critically tied to fire in the interior, and so there's some burned pieces of black spruce here along with a spruce grouse feather. The next one is tamarack. There's some low bush cranberry leaves there, and some tamarack needles behind mica. I love the detail, and if I could take these small parts of the trees and arrange them in a way that you as the viewer might look closer at them and you might see them in a different way. Today I was talking to someone in the gallery and they were asking about, in the black spruce, what are those things at the top? And they're needles. And on another one, what are those? Those are tiny seeds. And the chance to look closely at something and you come to see it in a deeper way or appreciate it more. The cottonwood is the second from the right, has some Labrador tea tied to it, and then aspen actually has leaves that show the intricate paths of the aspen leaf miner, which are becoming more ubiquitous in the interior now. So I'm always interested in how people work, and so I wanted to show you a little bit about how I work, how I constructed those. So my process, I collect what people might call forest detritus, stuff on the forest floor, and I bring it home. And for this project, I kept a box for each tree and shrub. And I just would collect things. Then I had to cut the flitches. So in the upper right, far right corner, you can see those are some flitches. They're about a little less than 1/4 of an inch thick, and I would cut them, plane them, sand them, oil them. And then I would arrange and rearrange and make little collages of all that detritus onto the flitches. And I'd do it one way and another and another and another until I got it to where it just felt right to me. And then I would drill with a Dremel, again in that upper right corner, with a tiny, tiny little bit, drill holes, and then use bookmaker's wax linen thread and tie all those things on. So they're tied on through tiny holes, which you can, when you look at it in the gallery, you can actually see from the back. You can see, like on the slide on the lower right, the tiny knots. So they're attached, and it's an ephemeral piece. Moss and I were talking, it's like, this is ephemeral. The birch leaf has changed color. This isn't going to last forever, but that's okay. That's okay. I imagine in this piece that the trees are saying, look closely. Look closely at our seeds, our leaves, our bark, the color and texture of us. Think about the tapestry that we weave with weather, soil, plants, insects, and animals. We have many stories to tell. Listen. So this was my way of listening and expressing that. Another part of my contribution to ITOC was poetry. And so along with this Boreal Colloquy piece, I wrote 5 poems for the Boreal Forest. And as Mary Beth told you, those poems will be incorporated with other writers' work in a book, soon, hopefully soon to be published. And I have created homes for some of those poems in other artist books that I've made. So the second show that came after Boreal Forest Stories was Boreal Echoes. So I took poems that I wrote during that Boreal Forest Stories time, and I made new artist books for them. And so they had a home, a physical home. One about, this is aspen and tamarack, and a book about black spruce, what we particularly know. So I am grateful for the time I've had learning about the science and how much it's really changed my poetry. I've written 16 poems for these ITOC projects, and I hope to write more. I want to share 2 of them with you. And one of them is birches, and it has a home in this book, which I used a technique called pochoir. I created stencils, and I painted with gouache, which is opaque watercolor, to make the trees and the leaves. Birches. Birches know about longing. From October to May, they wait. Wait. Wait for winter to relinquish its grip. Sheathed in their elegant skins, limbs anticipate the change. A tap on the shoulder, bright coins of light pressed into their boughs. By early May, tree wells open. Sleeves of snow fall slack, relax into thawing ground. Sap rises cell by cell until buds burst, and no matter how long you have lived at this latitude, you will be astonished by the arrival of so much green. Each leaf's release leaps from branches 8 months bare. Soon every tree rustles with thrushes, warblers, kinglets, the patient months of longing. Suddenly shimmer with light, and you hear a familiar story, told new for the first time. Now, Mary Beth mentioned that there is a collaborative part that just naturally, organically grew out of ITOC. So this piece is in the gallery. It's done by Margot Klass, a friend of mine. Come sit with me. And I was with Margot. I spent a lot of time with her. She's a fellow curator, and she's a dear friend. And I was inspired by this piece. And if you read her artist statement, it's very evocative, the way she describes it. But I watched her make this, and then I saw the finished piece, and I wrote the next poem, Invitation, Come Sit With Me, inspired by her work. And then I made a home for that poem in this frame box that is now part of the Boreal Echoes exhibition. And I'll close with this poem. Invitation, come sit with me. Come sit with me. Bring whatever you're carrying, small griefs, large ones, set them down on the forest floor. If you've come in spring, when birch buds release their clasped leaves, think about someone you've lost, how much they offered you this same exuberance. In summer, the swish and rustle of aspens will winnow around you. Bluebells will blossom and remind you how quickly things change. If it's autumn, tamaracks will sift flax and needles, while squirrels chirr from spruce branches, wondering how you're getting ready. Winter demands special attention. Life tapers to a tiny flame kept safe in the heartwood, tended in darkness. You too must do this. Come, enter the forest. Accept the invitation it's offering. There are many ways to heal. Come, sit with me. Thank you. Now I'm going to hand it over to Moss.
So lovely. Hello, I'm Moss, or Jennifer Moss, or Jen Moss. I'm an artist and designer with ITOC. I live on Shrez Dela, which translates to Black Bear Mountain. It's on the Lower Tanana Dinet traditional lands. It's also called Esther Dome near Fairbanks, if anyone of you are from there. I grew up here on Tlingit Ani in Juneau and will always feel very connected to this place and the people here. My work is directly influenced by my experiences in the Arctic and subarctic and my long time in Alaska. I'm interested in the complexity of relationships of ecosystems in terms of patterns and signals, and in terms of non-human languages of the land and the beings that inhabit this place, and how these connect with the human experience. I have participated in ITOC 5 times, from Envisioning the Future in 2010 to Boreal Echoes in 2024. One of the works that I created last year is titled Boreal Lexicon, and it addresses modeling system complexity in terms of language and personal symbolism. And for this work, I developed 256 personal symbols that represent elements of processes in the forest or our human relationships with them. And the symbols are layered on mica sheets and then on top of an abstract grid that represents seasons and environmental elements like fire and water. And this work is related to other work from ITOC projects because it encourages meaning making of ecosystem components within the construct of the human reflective response. It's also a possible origin work I hope to do more with in the future, and hopefully develop more collaborations around, so I'm excited about that. One of the foundations of the ITOC program, as you've heard from Mary Beth and Susan, is collaboration, and specifically relationship-centered, place-based, and interdisciplinary collaboration. And in my experience, true and equal collaboration really can't happen without stepping outside what you normally do and getting outside of your comfort zone and meeting your collaborator, like in that messy middle co-creative space, on equal terms. And collaboration in ITOC has pushed me to explore ideas and mediums and approaches that are not what I typically do. For example, I incorporated Alaska crude oil into a painting about the use of microbes for the degradation of oil spillage in the ocean. I used a smoke jumper's parachute to make a dress. I made another outfit using pieces of a birch fungus that are helpful for building fires with. It's a really uncomfortable space to be in, collaboration, because there's a big potential for failure. And it's a way more time consuming than working solo. But for me, it's been super great and really helpful for my professional growth and personal growth, because it's really forced me to try new things. Oh, let me go back. Let me see if that'll load again. There's a video there. You're gonna have to imagine it. Maybe I'll go forward and then back. No. Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you. I'll just start. That's okay. So I collaborated most recently also with an artist and sculptor, Mariana Stoltz, and we worked together to create a 15-foot kinetic sculpture for Boreal Echoes that we worked on very closely together for 8 months. It started off with a collaborative effort with all the ITOC artists getting together and doing meaning-making, collaborative mark-making on paper, and then taking that paper and putting it onto the finished product. And the paper itself was created while talking about the LTER research topics that the scientists were working on. So all the artists essentially collaborated with this work as well. The work's made up of 6 large panels that revolve around each other, and inside the cutouts there's small little mobiles that revolve independently, and the pairs of panels rotate, and then they all rotate around a central point that's supported by branches from the forest. Very different and outside my box, and Mariana's as well. The work itself is ephemeral. It's made from painted cardboard and mirrored paper and things like sticks and barks and animal skulls and seeds and bones and leaves. It's inspired by the complex and ever-changing nature of the boreal forest and our position within the ecosystem as reflected back to the viewer. And in the gallery space, it was great because the work interacted with viewers kind of as a center point for curiosity and exploration as it rotated slowly around, and the shadows did their own thing too. ITOC has had a lasting influence on my recent work, both in terms of medium, partly because I always end up with a lot of extra material after these projects to work with, but also because the topics continue to kind of percolate and influence my interest, things like forest fire and carbon storage and nitrogen cycling. And like Susan, my house is nestled in the boreal forest, and with trails that start at my doorstep, and I have a lovely dog named Lupine, and we get outside into that forest every day, no matter what it's like outside. She demands it. But through ITOC, I've gotten to know the forest on a much deeper level than I ever had before, and to see how everything is very amazingly connected, and also how we are an integral part of that ecosystem as well. And this is my work here that you can see in the museum. The Boreal Forest Inspiration Card Deck is an exploration of how our human perceptions and sensory experiences can have parallels that are entwined with that forest. And through them, insights gained from ecology can be used for personal reflection and growth. So each card offers both some general daily inspirational text and general related scientific information about the topic. And the text is based on numerous conversations that I had with scientists through the ITOC project. There's a handful of cards that are different. Some have artwork on both sides, and I call these mirror cards. Don't ask me why. They're meant to help you reflect on story making. And one card in particular is totally different than the others. It has a poem that I wrote that was inspired by a lovely human being named Knut Kieland, who I had many conversations with. He's a professor of wildlife biology at UAF. And he's just super fun and creative. And he imagines the process of plant succession as a sort of biogeochemical palette for painting understanding of ecology in riparian areas or near river areas. And I just loved that. I was very inspired. The artwork for the cards started with painted paper. And so I painted texture on paper, mostly multimedia paper, that reflect the textures that I see in my daily observations on my walks, and then tailoring it into these layered compositions. So I used acrylic paints and inks and crayons and pencils and other things and a variety of cutting tools for the process, lots of little tiny pieces of paper. The effort took me a whole year to put together the deck of cards. Thankfully, the project was happening during the pandemic, so obsessing over cutting out paper and painting and gluing them onto the paper, that was very therapeutic. I also referenced many pieces of the forest when possible for the artwork, and here you can see birch leaves with the leaf miner tracks that I was using to construct this one. I definitely had some moments of despair, like, you know, if you've ever made a deck of cards, you're like, whoa, what have I gotten myself into? The problem was this program introduced artists to very deep conversations with a lot of scientists doing really interesting work, and I was so compelled by all of I just couldn't choose. I'm not a very decisive person. Maybe some of you know, but I chose everything. I couldn't limit it to just one thing. So I was also writing during that process, and I had lots of conversations over Zoom and email and in person outside or masked with many different scientists, and sent them my drafts. We had back and forths, and I would get feedback from them. I also worked towards the end of the process with a copy editor to help refine the text, which was a wonderful experience. This was pre-ChatGPT, but a good copy editor beats AI any day. And then I designed the layout for the cards in the booklet and the box using Adobe tools. In 2022, I received a Rasmussen Foundation Individual Artist Grant Award to help with the publishing. And there are 52 cards in the deck total, and a selection of the artwork here is out here in the exhibit, which you can see. So the deck comes with a booklet that outlines a few ways that you can use these cards for daily practice. You can also interact with the cards online for free. So I thought we might try that together as a group right now, if I can remember how to do this on this setup. So I'm going to get it over to that page. Yes. Okay. So what I would like you to all to do is just take a moment, and you can close your eyes if you want, and just think about something in your life that's going on, maybe something that's just been on your mind lately in your own personal life. And we're going to draw a random card here. So first, just look at the picture, look at the textures and the color and the shapes and the image, and I'll read it, or I'll try to read it. I guess I need to step back here. After the heat of fire, there is a softening and melting deep inside. Where there was once firm ground, there is now an unconscious union of spaces once held apart. Structures drain away and uncertainty follows. As stability shifts, you may find a new center upon which to stand and new connections to help you through the change. Forest fires in the boreal forest affect the stability of permafrost in the soil's active layer. The full effect of fire on the permafrost depends on the thickness and the hydration of the soil organic layer. What was once frozen ground may thaw, water may drain away, and slumps and sinkholes may appear, changing the surface of land over time. Where once only spruce were found, birch and aspen may move in, or forests can convert to wetlands or lakes. So, how might this relate to what you were thinking about a moment ago? Maybe it doesn't. Sometimes that could mean something to you personally as well. Are there any associations or connections that might be helpful for you to relate to your personal situation or thoughts about what you were thinking about a moment? So this is just one way that you can use the cards to explore the boreal forest through the narratives of personal experience in your life that I wanted to share. And I'm going to attempt to switch it back over. Yay. So thank you. And I'm going to hand it back to Mary Beth, who is not only our fearless leader, but she's also a highly creative and wonderful person to work with. So I wanted to just say thank you. I feel very honored to be part of the program. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Wow. Yeah, I'm just so inspired by all the work and the depth and commitment that all these artists put into this program. And thank you for sharing so much about your work, Susan and Moss, and for joining us tonight and being part of this. So I want to step back a little bit and talk about the research dimension of this and what are the impacts of this program on audiences and participants. And this is all rooted in the conceptual framework behind the ITOC program, which is really centered around relationships. And in this conceptual model, my collaborator, Lissy Gralnick, who's a social scientist at Michigan State University, works very closely with me on developing this framework and assessing it and researching it and actually iteratively coming back and improving the program based on what we learn. And we came up with this with the help of Moss, actually a designer, this conceptual diagram where our relationship-focused arts, humanities, science integration program is aiming to facilitate place connection through what we hope are equitable collaborations that lead also to informal science engagement, which engages the public in the science. But we're looking at relationships between the artists and writers, and you can tell from their stories that sometimes collaborations pop up or ideas spark between the groups, between individuals within the cohort. So we're interested in those relationships, and of course the relationships between artists and the scientists, and trying to find ways to help those be equitable in terms of the, trying to destabilize any knowledge hierarchies where maybe science is considered, more paramount than the arts. We try to have an equitable bidirectional exchange there. And of course, the artists are engaging with the public, you, the audience who come to these shows. Scientists directly and indirectly get to access that. And everyone is really connecting and building a relationship with each other via a shared focus on place. And so we have been working on research that investigates questions rooted in this conceptual framework, including how to best facilitate these kinds of art-science interactions in the programming that's behind the scenes, that 1 to 2 years that lead up to these shows, and also how do these events impact audience engagement with and relationships to the focus, the boreal forest, in this case, the natural world, and science more broadly. And we ask these questions through surveys, and we have a survey for this project that you can access through a QR code, or sometimes we have paper versions. There's Lissy with one of my graduate students, eagerly encouraging folks to fill that out. We also do interviews with the artists and participants. And I just want to share a little bit of the audience survey data from Boreal Forest Stories. We have data compiled from Fairbanks and Homer. We haven't yet compiled the rest of the tour, and we were excited to see about what the Juneau audience and all the many visitors that come through think. But what we found is a really strong signal where people self-report that just visiting this exhibit increased their knowledge. So there's been learning about the boreal forest, including by people who live in the boreal forest, 85% in Fairbanks, and even more in Homer who don't live in the boreal forest per se. It also inspires curiosity about the forest, about the natural world, and appreciation of the forest, and appreciation of science, which is also exciting for all of us. And so it's really a combination of knowledge that inspires curiosity and appreciation. There's a knowledge, a learning, and an emotional component to this. And here's just one example of a figure where we're asking really about how this affected people's connection to the boreal forest. And again, we have a really strong signal of folks reporting that attending the exhibit has increased their connection to the boreal forest, including by people who live in the boreal forest in Fairbanks, and also quite strongly, even more so in Homer. So then we explored a little bit more deeply through some more open-ended questions, the nature of this connection, and through qualitative research methods that are used in social science, came up with some a series of kind of themes that emerged in people's open-ended responses about types of connection. We found that people reported that they're learning and they're inspiring, they have curiosity that's being inspired. There's also this really strong emotional connection that the arts bring to it. And connection across community. People are often interacting with each other. They're feeling connected with their artist friends. They're seeing friends there. They're discussing the work together. And also people feel that they actually come out of this with a motivation to take some action, pro-environmental action. And I want to really kind of key into the emotional elements. We've talked about learning, that people report that they've learned something, but they also feel something. And so one quote, "It's hard to put into words the power of the experience and lasting emotional connection of the forest that I experienced during the exhibit." So that's really powerful that through the artist's eyes and through their creative work, that's creating that connection for the audience to the forest. And the environmental sustainability research literature really shows that it's important for people to not only have knowledge of the science behind the place and how it's changing, for instance, but also emotional feelings, care, wonder, and it's knowledge plus emotion and care that can lead to action. And I think that speaks a lot to the power of this kind of collaborative project and what it can potentially do, we hope, towards addressing some of the complex social ecological challenges that we face that science alone can't solve. So I'd like to encourage you all to fill out the audience survey if you get a chance, whether it's tonight or if you come back and really absorb the exhibit at depth, and encourage your friends to as well. And we have created a virtual version so you can access it conveniently through your smartphone. So thank you so much for coming to the exhibit and for filling out the survey and hearing our stories of the boreal forest. And I want to thank you all for being here. Again, thank the museum for having us, and especially thank our sponsors that made this possible. If you'd like to learn more about the project, you can visit our website with this QR code, and you can actually get on our email list, learn about future opportunities as an artist or opportunities to visit exhibitions. And I want to thank Bonanza Creek LTER and the National Science Foundation and the U.S. Forest Service that have funded this program over the long term, and the University of Alaska Fairbanks for in-kind support. And especially big thank you to the Rasmussen Foundation for the Harper Arts Touring Award that's administered through the Alaska State Council on the Arts that helped us bring this exhibition down to Juneau. And again, thank you so much to the Alaska State Library, Archives, and Museum for having us. Thanks. Yeah, and we're happy to field questions, and Jackie or others will bring the microphone around to you so that folks online can hear.
Thank you. Good work.
Thank you.
Has the ITOC team been inspired yet to think about the future story for the boreal forest? I've recently been inspired by two books that were published in 2024 and 2023. One's called On the Move: The Heating Earth and the Displacement of America. The other is called The Great Displacement, on the same topic, really. As people flee deadly heat in the south of this country and in the rest of the world, they're going to migrate northward. They may go far beyond Montana and wind up in the boreal forest. What's the future of the boreal forest? Now, the author of On the Move imagines that agriculture is going to move north too. I think he forgets that soils are necessary. There aren't very good soils in the boreal forest for growing corn and soybeans, for example. But have you been motivated to think about the future of the boreal forest in this migration of humanity to escape deadly heat and sea level rise?
Yes, that is a great question. And I think it really touches on an important point that we need to be considering when we're engaging more broadly in this conversation about the future under the context of climate change is the need to have positive visions of what that looks like and how we're going to adapt and acclimate, and how, migrations are going to occur. How are we going to accommodate people or, food requirements and food security and all of that. And so we did in one of our earlier projects, it was called Envisioning the Future. I think it was our second ITOC project back in, I'm going to guess, maybe about 2010. Yeah, and that was suggested by Terry Chapin, a brilliant ecologist. I can tell that you both have a lot in common. He said, what you really should do is think about the future and provide people with a vision of what that's going to look like. And I think that there's more work to be done on that, and that would be a great theme to consider revisiting, as the story keeps evolving. Thank you. Do you guys want to come up?
Hi, thanks. That was really wonderful. I kind of have a question about the collaboration part from the science perspective. I'm a scientist, and you mostly sort of targeting the public here and through these art exhibits. And I've seen in my line of work sort of increasingly art being incorporated in scientific publications, and I wonder if you've gone down that road as well.
About Ree?
Feel free to comment. I'll maybe start, and then these guys will add a little bit more to that. But the program, as you can tell, has been largely oriented in terms of like an outward, connection to the public, in terms of communicating the outcomes of these collaborative experiences. But we recognize a direction we really want to move in is to deepen the collaboration between artists and scientists that may or may not even have a communicative element. So certainly it can help to communicate science to the public or even to other scientists in journal articles. But how can we solve problems, like complex research problems or complex social ecological problems, potentially through this interdisciplinary approach? And this is how we're trying to move more towards that direction. So we're starting to experiment more with having the artists and scientists explore and discuss, like, what's the nature of creativity, what's the role of creativity in science as well as in the arts, and see if we can not only build a relationship, but build kind of new interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary frameworks to start to solve problems. So it's a really tricky challenge to take that to the next level, but I think that's where we need to go in order to really address these challenges. Do you all have anything to add?
Franz, your question made me think of one of the artists in the show, Ree Nancaro. She was invited by, it was a big climate change report, to have one of her quilts, I think it's on the cover of it. Do you know what the publication was?
Yeah, the National Climate Report that came out in very early 2025 was the first to actually feature artwork, and there were over 800 submissions, and Ree Nancaro was selected among, I think, the quite small number who were included, and hers was on the cover. And then that became also incorporated into the U.S. climate report to the United Nations as well. So it's also like reaching these higher levels.
That someone saw that art connection to be able to visualize something in this complex scientific report. So I know Ree felt really honored. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming. Thanks.